Good morning, students. In this lecture, we will discuss welding defects. There are various types of welding defects. Before discussing the defects, I want to tell you what is the defect. The significance of defects in welds, which can be assumed to occur in normal fabrication, is of importance to design engineers. A defective weldment fails under services conditions and causes damage to property and loss of human lives. So this make it is necessary to study defects in welded joints and analyze their causes. Improper welding parameters and base metal and wrong welding procedure introduce defects or faults in the weld metal and that is in the heat affected zone. HAZ. The tolerances of welded joints to defects ranges from acceptance of gross defects under static loading at low stress levels to sensitivity to extremely small defects such as cracks, which are almost impossible to detect and बाई नॉन डिस्ट्रक्टिव टेस्टिंग नॉन डिस्ट्रक्टिव टेस्टिंग से कुछ ऐसे क्रैक्स होते हैं जो इम्पॉसिबल होते हैं डिटेक्ट करने डेफिनेटली अगर हम क्वालिटी की बात करते हैं किसी भी वेल्ड की तो क्वालिटी डिपेंड करती है कि वेल्डिंग में हमारा डिफेक्ट प्रेजेंट है या नहीं है तो और कहीं ना कहीं जनरली कुछ सिग्निफिकेंस होते हैं इंडिविजुअली डिफेक्ट्स जिनके ऊपर डिपेंड्स करते हैं जैसे हमारा माइक्रो स्ट्रक्चर इन विच द डिफेक्ट अकर्स जिस स्ट्रक्चर में डिफेक्ट्स हो रहा है दिस डिफेक्ट्स आल्सो डिपेंड अपॉन दिस टाइप ऑफ things and mechanical properties of material and with particular reference to notch toughness and type of loading मतलब type of loading हमारा static है या cyclic loading है या shock है and environment is also a factor that depend upon defects corrosive or non-corrosive section thickness and size of defects and stress pattern local to defects. There are many type of defects. Here I will tell you cracks. Crack also classified hot cracks and cold cracks, and another one is distortion and incomplete penetration, inclusion, and porosity and blowholes. This is the most important defects that I will discuss to you. Porosity and poor fusion is also type of welding defects. Poor weld bead appearance, spatter, creator, underwater undercutting and overlapping. These are lot of type of defects. Now in this lecture we will discuss porosity. Porosity is a group of small voids where blowholes or gas pockets is a comparatively bigger isolated hole or cavity. They occur mainly due to the entrapped gases. For that is shown in figure. जैसा कि हमने डायग्राम में देखा ही है जनरली ये हमारा कहाँ पर होता है and the parent metal melted under the arc tends to absorb gases like hydrogen, carbon monoxide, nitrogen, and oxygen if they are present around the molten metal pool. These gases may be produced due to some coating ingredients in the electrode or moisture, oil, rust, grease, etc. existing on the base plates to be welded. These gases get spread through the molten pool by diffusion and convection phenomena. The solubility of gases in the molten metal reduces as it cools down the dissolved gases and liberated from the liquid metal until it start to freeze. For gas bubbles to form, that is for the porosity to occur, the concentration of gases in the molten metal weld pool must be above the standard solubility of the gases in the solid metal at the melting point. So the bubbles generally form at the solid liquid interface, remain there, grow to critical size, move through the molten pool and flee to atmosphere, and the probability for the porosity to occur will depend upon the rate at which the bubbles nucleate and the cooling rate of the molten pool. And if the nucleation and thus the growth of bubbles gas delay, and the molten metal cools at a faster rate. Most of gas bubbles will get entrapped in the weld metal and give rise to porosity. And there are various factors leading to porous welds. Coating on uh, electrode and longer arcs and faster arc travel speed is also another factor that helps to lead the porosity. And incorrect welding techniques, इनकरेक्ट वेल्डिंग टेक्निक्स भी कहीं ना कहीं पोरोसिटी के लिए रेस्पॉन्सिबल होती है. एंड एनवायरमेंट कंटामिनेशन, स्केल, डस्ट, ऑयल, ग्रीस, मॉइस्चर, वो एक्सेट्रा इफ प्रेजेंट ऑन द जॉब सरफेस, दैट इज अनक्लीन जॉब सरफेस. अगर जो हमारी अनक्लीन है, इट इज नॉट क्लियर एंड देयर इज अ चांस ऑफ पोरोसिटी. And improper base metal composition, generally high sulfur or carbon content, will lead to porosity. This is another important factor that all have help to porosity to lead. And porosity generally a group of small gas pores or cavities. And if we talk about the blowholes, large gas cavities. जनरली ये डिफरेंस लोग नहीं समझ पाते हैं, स्टूडेंट्स के मन में नहीं आता है कि पोरोसिटी और ब्लोहोल्स की हम बात कर रहे हैं कि बोथ आर द टाइप ऑफ वेल्डिंग डिफेक्ट्स, लेकिन जब हम पोरोसिटी की बात करते हैं और ब्लोहोल्स की बात करते हैं तो वी आर नॉट एबल टू कंपेयर each other. So now I will tell you porosity, a group of small gas pores और cavities, यानी छोटे छोटे जो हमारे गड्ढे रहते हैं या छोटे छोटे बबल्स से जो जगह बनती हैं, खाली जगह, उनका ग्रुप पोरोसिटी होता है. और ब्लो होल्स लार्ज गैस कैविटीज होती हैं, जो बड़ी कैविटीज बनती हैं वो ब्लो होल्स होते हैं. एंड दिस इज द डायग्राम इन विच पोरोसिटी हैज बीन शोन. ये पोरोसिटी, ये हमारा कोई मेटल पीस है, उस मेटल के पीस के ऊपर वेल्ड किया गया है, उस वेल्ड में हमने पोरोसिटी को ब्लैक डॉट्स के थ्रू दिखाया गया है. दिस इज द पोरोसिटी. पोरोसिटी जैसा मैंने तुम्हें बताया अकर्स एज ए रिजल्ट ऑफ वेल्ड मेटल कंटामिनेशन. दिस इज important factor that environment contamination, weld contamination, that is totally responsible for porosity. And if you want to avoid the porosity during the welding process, you have to clean your job. The metal should be clean that you are being welded, and the trapped gases create a bubble filled weld, become weak and can with the time collapse. So these are the some reasons. Now I will tell you the causes of porosity. What is the general causes of porosity? Using a longer arc, that I have already told you. If the arc will long, then it helps to lead the porosity. And the presence of moisture, this is another important factor that lead to porosity. And improper gas shields, incorrect surface treatments, and use of too high gas flow and contaminated surface, that point we have already discussed. A presence of rust, paint, grease or oil on the metal surface that being welded, जिस वेल्ड को आप वेल्ड कर रहे हैं उस मेटल के सरफेस पर रस्ट, पेंट और ग्रेस और ऑयल अगर प्रेजेंट है, एक कोई लेयर है, तो अगर हम वेल्डिंग स्टार्ट कर दी, डेफिनेटली दे हेल्प टू लीड द पोरोसिटी. एंड अनदर रेमेडीज, these are the remedies how to prevent the porosity during the welding processes. Clean the material before you begin the welding. That's the one important point, because if you are doing any type of welding processes, you have to clean your job before starting the welding process. And use dry electrode and materials. Definitely you have to use dry electrodes, welding electrodes and the materials, and use correct arc distance, and check the gas flow meters and make sure that it optimize as required with proper with pressure and flow settings. क्योंकि हमने भी अभी कोर्सेज में पढ़ा कि गैस फ्लो is also responsible for porosity. So we have to check clearly gas flow, and sure make sure the proper pressure and flow settings, and reduce arc travel speeds, and which will allow the gases to escape. And you know very well, escaping is the process that help to lead the porosity. And use the right electrodes and use a proper weld techniques. This is another important point that I have told you. that if you will use improper welding techniques, that is totally responsible for the uh, porosity. So if you want to avoid the porosity, you have to keep it in your mind that these type of remedies, and with the help of these remedies, you can avoid the porosity. Now, another defect is undercut. This is also an important type of defects. Generally, undercut this welding imperfection is the groove formation at the weld toy and reducing the cross-sectional thickness of base metal. The result is the weak the weld and the workpieces. So undercut generally, if you will see the undercut, it will be appear the root of the base metal. In undercutting, a groove gets formed in the parent metal along the sides of the weld bead. Groove reduces the thickness of the plate and thus the area along the bead, which is turn weakens the weld, जो वेल्ड को कमजोर बना देता है. और जनरली इसमें क्या होता है, ग्रूव्स परफॉर्म होते हैं, ग्रूव्स बनता है मेटल के, जो हमारी पेरेंट मेटल होती है उसमें ग्रूव्स बन जाते हैं, जैसे ये अंडरकट डायग्राम में हमने देखा है. Undercut has been shown in this diagram. These are the grooves that has been formed the near the weld bead. जो हमारा weld bead है उसमें उसके पास में grooves बन जाते हैं, उसको undercuts बोलते हैं. और डेफिनेटली ये क्या करते हैं, वेल्ड की वीकनेस को बढ़ा देते हैं. अगर कहीं पर कोई कट लगा होगा तो डेफिनेटली स्ट्रेस कंसंट्रेशन वहां ज्यादा हो जाता है और वीकनेस बढ़ जाती है. एंड there are many causes that has been given here. Undercut to high weld current. Due to high weld current, undercut is also occurs, and wrong manipulation and inclination of electrode, excessive weaving, and too large electrode diameters, and high currents that I told you, and longer arcs, faster arc travel speeds, and magnetic arc below, and rusty and scaly job surfaces. And these are the some causes that I told you. Incorrect use of gas shieldings, and large electrode diameter is too large, incorrect filler metals, poor weld techniques. These are the some causes that totally responsible for the undercut. And these are the remedies. With the help of these remedies, you can avoid the undercuts. Use proper electrode angle and reduce the arc length. Yes, and reduce the electrode travel speed, but it is also not be too slow. और आप इलेक्ट्रोड की ट्रेवल स्पीड को घटाएंगे ताकि हमारा अंडरकट परफॉर्म ना हो, वेल्डिंग डिफेक्ट्स ना हो, लेकिन इट शुड नॉट बी वेरी स्लो. Clear? Choose shielding gas and with the correct composition for the material type you will be welding, and use the proper electrode angles and with the more heat directed towards thicker components, and you have to use proper current and reducing it when approaching thinner areas and free edges, and choose a correct welding technique that does not involve excessive weaving, and use multi pass techniques. So these are the some remedies. With the help of these, you can reduce the undercut defects. And thank you very much.